In one of the strangest countries on the planet, known as the Island of Evolution, everything you see feels unusual. Here, cultural taboos carry more weight than the Constitution itself. In some places, women are forbidden to wear hats. In others, they can't eat pork or eels, and wearing white or black is banned. Foreigners, they're not allowed to own land at all. Yes, this is Madagascar, unlike anywhere else. There's even a tribe where stealing a cow gives a man the right to marry as many wives as he wants. And deep inside forests of razor-sharp stone, ancient secrets are still hidden. All right, let's begin with 15 shocking facts. Number 15. Fady, the system of taboos that rules the nation. In Madagascar, there are rules you'll never find in a law book, but breaking them can bring punishments even harsher than the law itself. Sounds chilling, right? That's Fady, a system of cultural taboos that has existed for centuries, passed down from generation to generation, sometimes carrying more weight than national law. On this island, every tribe, even every village, may have its own Fady. In Polyandry, twins were once seen as such a bad omen that parents were forced to abandon their villages, a practice so serious that UNICEF had to step in. Among the Sakalava people, pointing at a royal tomb, wearing shoes inside the burial site, or even carrying something red is considered an insult to the ancestors, because red is seen as a challenge to the spirits. In the highlands, some places forbid eating eels or pork since locals believe those animals are their ancestors. The penalties for breaking a Fady are far from simple. You might have to pay a fine in zebu cattle, which are as valuable as gold. Worse, you could be shunned, banned, or even expelled from the island. One European traveler recalled being denied service at a guest house just for whistling at night because locals believed it called evil spirits. Anthropological surveys show that over 80% of Malagasy people say they strictly follow Fady. With more than 18 tribes and hundreds of different taboos, visitors stepping onto Madagascar often feel like they've entered a maze of invisible laws. So here's the advice: always ask locals before eating, taking pictures, or visiting sites. What seems harmless to you could turn the entire community against you. Number 14. Foreigners, forbidden from owning land in Madagascar. Can you believe that in Madagascar, even if you showed up with a suitcase full of cash, you still couldn't buy a single piece of land? In the US or France, foreigners can legally buy homes, land, or even entire neighborhoods. But in Madagascar, this is strictly forbidden. Land is considered sacred property of the ancestors, and the law completely bans foreign ownership. If you're an international investor, your only options are to establish a Malagasy company to hold the land, or to sign a long-term lease of up to 99 years known as bail emphytéotique. That means you can use and develop the land, but you'll never truly own it. This rule is rooted in history. During French colonial times, fertile land was sold or exploited by outsiders. That painful memory made Malagasy people determined to keep land in local hands. The issue has even triggered political crises. In 2009, a plan for South Korea's Daewoo Logistics to lease 3.2 million acres of land for corn and palm oil sparked nationwide outrage and contributed to the government's collapse. Globally, Madagascar isn't alone. In Greenland, land can't be sold to individuals, it's all state-owned and only leased. In Ethiopia, the Constitution declares all land belongs to the people and the state with no private ownership allowed. Meanwhile, in Western countries like France or the US, foreign ownership is perfectly normal and protected by law. Number 13. The Island of Evolution. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a piece of land drifted away from its continent and evolved entirely on its own? For tens of millions of years, Madagascar is the answer. About 88 million years ago, this massive island broke off from the supercontinent Gondwana and drifted into the Indian Ocean. Strong currents and isolation turned it into Earth's giant evolutionary laboratory. The result: 92% of mammals, 95% of reptiles, and nearly 90% of plants found here exist nowhere else on Earth. In other words, if you see an animal cross your path here, there's a 9 out of 10 chance you won't see it anywhere else. There are no elephants, lions, or cheetahs like in the rest of Africa. Instead, you'll find giant baobab trees shaped like upside-down vases with hollow trunks big enough to house bars or shelter entire families. The forests are ruled by lemurs, over 70 species ranging from palm-sized mouse lemurs to the Indri, whose calls echo across the jungle. Some species are gone forever, like the giant lemur that once weighed 400 pounds. The island's top predator is the fossa, a strange half-cat, half-mongoose creature. On the ground, there are jumping rats that can leap 3 feet high, leaf-tailed geckos that vanish into dead leaves, and tomato-red frogs unlike anything you've ever seen. Even beetles here can lift 850 times their own weight. But this wonder born of isolation is also fragile. Madagascar's 25 million people still rely heavily on forests for firewood hunting and farming. The cost. Nearly 90% of the island's original rainforest has been destroyed. Deforestation, wildfires, and poaching continue to push many unique species to the brink of extinction. Number 12. A rare village of both polygyny and polyandry in Africa. If there is one community in Madagascar that leaves anthropologists around the world speechless, it's the Bara people, a major tribe of about 500,000 living in the island's south. They are famous as nomads tied to zebu cattle, humpbacked livestock, seen as living gold, and the ultimate measure of honor, power, and marriage. Among the Bara, the number of cattle a man owns determines how many wives he can have. And before marrying, every young man must face a daring test, successfully stealing cattle from another herd, a dangerous rite of passage that proves his worth as a warrior. But what truly shocks researchers is the Bara's unusual concept of marriage. While many African tribes practice polygyny, men marrying multiple wives, the Bara also have cases of polyandry, where women marry multiple husbands at the same time. This phenomenon is extremely rare across Africa. For men, multiple wives mean more labor and more cattle. For wealthy or high-status women, multiple husbands bring economic power, community prestige, and secure bloodlines. This mix has led to the Bara being jokingly called the village of both polygyny and polyandry. And the contrast is striking. In the US or Europe, a single affair can ruin a career. In many African tribes, men may take several wives, but women cannot. Yet in Bara, both men and women enjoy the privilege of multiple partners. It's a form of traditional gender equality, but rooted in property and power, not in romantic love, as imagined in the West. Number 11. The ban on dressing as a clown. Can you believe that in Madagascar, just dressing up as a clown and walking down the street could get you arrested by the police? Sounds like a joke, but this is one of the strangest laws still enforced in the island nation. In the US or Europe, clowns are seen as symbols of laughter, appearing at birthday parties, circuses, or even horror films like IT. But in Madagascar, the image is tied to chaos and community mockery. The rule came after several incidents of street performers dressing as clowns to draw attention, which led to crowding disorder and even small clashes. Authorities labeled it a form of social provocation and added it to the banned list. According to local records, between 2015 and 2018 alone, dozens of incidents involving clown performers disrupted major cities like Antananarivo, forcing the government to tighten restrictions. Interestingly, this rule does not apply to controlled spaces like circuses. If you want to perform as a clown, you must register, officially apply for a license, and perform only in approved areas. One French performer reported being stopped at a central square simply for painting his face like a clown to film a vlog, and he was fined around $100, a heavy penalty in a country where the average annual income is only about $500. Number 10. The tradition of painting flowers on women's faces. Among the Sakalava people, one of Madagascar's largest and most tradition-rich tribes, there is a unique practice that transforms women's faces into living artworks called mason joni. With a population of more than 1.3 million, the Sakalava mostly live along the windy, sun-scorched western coast. Their culture, shaped by this harsh environment, is both resilient and graceful. Mason Joni is one of their most iconic traditions, reflecting both beauty and spiritual belief. Using sandalwood or local tamarind trees, Sakalava women grind the wood into a fine powder mix, hit with water, and create a golden paste. This natural foundation cools. The skin protects against the sun, like a natural SPF in a place with over 2,800 hours of sunlight a year, and also becomes a canvas for their own artistry. On these radiant golden faces, women hand-paint designs of flower suns or spirals representing their ancestors. Each line is both decorative and deeply meaningful to the tribe. What makes Mason Joni extraordinary is that no two designs are ever alike. On Nosy, a famous tourist island, women prefer large floral patterns covering their cheeks like walking flower gardens. In the Sakalava Highlands, women favor thin, symmetrical patterns resembling hand-woven fabric. Many motifs also carry spiritual meaning, believed to ward off evil spirits or connect women with their ancestors. Number 9. Men and women wear the same traditional clothing. If you think about it, many types of clothing are divided by gender in the West, only because society decided it was appropriate. But in Madagascar, the line between men's and women's clothing is so blurred that both genders wear the same traditional garment, the lamba. It's a large rectangular piece of cloth, usually over 6 feet long, wrapped around the body in different ways. Like a giant shawl, it's both practical and deeply symbolic. What's fascinating is that the lamba isn't gender-labeled the way clothing often is in the West. While we tend to link skirts with women and pants with men in Madagascar, both men and women wear lamba at the market while farming, or even during festivals. For women, the lamba is usually colorful and patterned, reflecting their status or family situation. For men, it's often in darker tones or simply plain white, especially during funerals. In many regions, the lamba carries special meaning. At weddings, couples may share one lamba to symbolize unity. In death, the Malagasy are traditionally wrapped in pure white lamba as they return to the ancestors. It's more than clothing, it's a silent language that tells stories of identity, belief, and the journey of life. Number 8. The numbers you shouldn't mention in Madagascar. In the U.S., the number 13 is avoided so much that some buildings skip the 13th floor. But in Madagascar, unlucky numbers don't stop at 1. They come with an entire list that outsiders struggle to remember. First is the number 3, seen as unfinished, symbolizing imbalance and incompleteness. At some traditional weddings, dividing gifts into 3 parts, or inviting guests in groups of 3 is considered bad luck, as people believe anything in 3s will soon break apart. In fact, many communities avoid starting work or ceremonies on Tuesdays, the 3rd day of the week, because beginnings on that day are thought to be unstable. Next is the number 7. While the West treats it as lucky or sacred in Madagascar, it has a tragic meaning. Locals believe disasters repeat in cycles of 7 days, 7 months, or 7 years. Families may avoid weddings or groundbreaking ceremonies on the 7th, fearing happiness will collapse in this cycle of fate. Children born on the 7th are sometimes thought to face more struggles in life. More broadly, odd numbers in general are often linked to imbalance in Malagasy folklore. People here value balance and completeness. Everything should come in pairs like shoes' eyes or blessings. Number 7. The ban on starting work on Tuesdays. The idea of kicking off a big project on a Tuesday is greeted with the same enthusiasm as biting into stale bread. Pure disappointment and something best avoided. People believe that starting something important on this day brings bad luck, as though Tuesday itself has a grudge against productivity. Picture this. You pitch a new idea and your boss says, "Great, let's start on Tuesday." The collective gasp from Malagasy colleagues would echo across the room as they rush to move it to a luckier day. It's almost as if the universe hung a giant "Do Not Disturb" sign over Tuesday, warning everyone to keep their big plans away. In offices, Tuesday is seen as the prankster of the calendar, the day most likely to throw chaos into your carefully laid plans. You might aim for greatness, but if it lands on a Tuesday, the advice is simple: scrap it and wait until Wednesday. In Madagascar, Tuesday is for small everyday tasks, the kind that if they fail, won't bring misfortune. So while the rest of the world groans about Mondays, Madagascar gives the dubious honor to Tuesday, the day you're better off leaving alone. It's a strange blend of superstition and tradition, a cultural reminder that important things should wait for calmer skies. Number 6. Whales migrating to Madagascar for love. Can you believe there's a species willing to travel more than 100 miles just to reach an ocean dating paradise? That's the humpback whale, the giant wanderers of the sea. Every year from June to September, around 10,000, 12,000 of them leave the icy waters of Antarctica for the warm seas around Île Sainte-Marie and Madagascar's eastern coast. What's fascinating is that this journey isn't about feeding, it's about finding mates and raising the next generation. The waters off Madagascar turn into a natural concert hall where male whales perform underwater love songs, deep melodic calls that can last up to 20 minutes and travel hundreds of miles through the ocean. Scientists often describe it as a love chorus only nature could compose. Tourists visiting Madagascar during this season can witness breathtaking performances, adults leaping out of the water and crashing back down with a thunderous splash, while mothers gently guide their calves by their side. Tail slaps and waterspouts reaching 15 feet high aren't just communication. They're a kind of dance, a show of power and majesty. Number 5. The city where touching fountain water is forbidden, in Rome or Paris. If a tourist jumps into a fountain to check in, they might just get a warning or a small fine. But in Antananarivo, Madagascar's capital, such an act could turn you into a cultural offender. In 2019, a group of European tourists was fined on the spot by police after plunging into the Analakli fountain. It may sound harsh, but in Madagascar, public water carries sacred meaning. It isn't just decoration. Locals believe fountains and central squares are water altars linking people to the spirits of their ancestors. The fine is also surprising, 100,000 erari, about $25. For Western visitors, that's the price of a few cocktails in Paris, but for residents of Antananarivo, it equals a week's average wages. And sometimes the penalty goes beyond money. Violators may face community backlash, with shopkeepers, street vendors, or even taxi drivers refusing to serve them for bringing bad luck. The challenge for tourists is that this unwritten rule isn't posted anywhere. You can sit beside a fountain or take photos, but never touch the water, and certainly don't think of bathing in the middle of the square. Number 4. Madagascar's streets flooded with old European cars. Step into Madagascar's capital, Antananarivo, and you'll feel like you've wandered into a giant European car museum, except every piece is still running. On the streets, more than 90% of vehicles are old imports from France, Italy, or Germany. Many Peugeots, Renaults, and Citroëns date back to the 1960s and 70s, the same era as the Apollo 11 moon landing, yet they still carry passengers daily. The city's iconic Taxi B minibuses are the best example. Over 3,000 of them operate with an average age of around 60 years. Their patched-up interiors have wooden or scrap metal seats, back doors tied with rope. Yet somehow they squeeze in more than 20 passengers at a time, with luggage piled high on the roof, racing up and down steep hills. For tourists riding, one feels more like a survival adventure than a bus trip. Along Independence Avenue, rows of Renault 4s and Citroën 2CVs line up, making visitors forget they're on vacation and instead snap photos of these living relics. While the rest of the world talks about Uber or Tesla, Madagascar keeps its metal fossils alive as the beating heart of public transport woven into the daily rhythm of life. Number 3. The world's only forest of razor-sharp stone. On Madagascar's western side lies one of the strangest natural wonders on Earth, Tsingy de Bemaraha, recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 1990. Locals call it Tsingy, meaning the place where you cannot walk barefoot. And they're right. This is an entire forest of limestone with jagged rock spires rising from a few feet to over 400 feet tall, sharp enough to seriously injure anyone unlucky enough to fall. Covering more than 600 square miles, Tsingy is a massive vertical labyrinth with narrow passageways barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through. Many explorers describe it as the Grand Canyon turned upright. For humans, Tsingy is nearly untouchable. Many areas have never seen a footprint because the terrain is too dangerous. Scientific teams need ropes, thick gloves, metal hooks, and professional climbing gear just to enter. It's even the only national park in the world where visitors are required to use harnesses for safety. Locals consider it a sacred stone sanctuary, a holy place not to be disturbed casually. Even stranger beneath this stone forest lie networks of caves and underground rivers still unexplored. Some rock walls are so sharp they can cut through leather boots in just a few steps. Many scientists describe the area as an alien planet on Earth. Number 2. A nation. Without a modern army, Madagascar is one of the rare countries in the world that has virtually no modern military. The entire armed force of this island, spanning nearly 220,000 square miles, almost the size of Texas, at 268,000 square miles, consists of just about 13,500 soldiers. To put that into perspective, New York City alone has more than 34,000 police officers patrolling a city of only 472 square miles. Imagine a country 3 times larger than Germany with an army smaller than a single American city's police force. It's not just the numbers, the equipment is alarmingly outdated. Most weapons are leftover Soviet gear from the 1970s and 80s, a handful of aging armored vehicles, and a navy limited to a few small patrol boats, hardly enough to defend its massive economic zone at sea. Why would such a large country accept having no modern army? The answer lies in its economy and history. With GDP per capita below $600 per year, Madagascar has virtually no defense budget. Instead of joining an arms race, the nation has chosen to rely on diplomacy, keeping peaceful ties with major powers and neighboring states. At several points in history, the government even pursued near demilitarization to focus on social development, betting that it would not be dragged into regional conflict. Number 1. Once the world's greatest pirate paradise. Would you believe the true pirate capital of the world wasn't in the famous Caribbean, but off the coast of Madagascar? In the late 17th century, Île Sainte-Marie, also called Nosy Boraha, became home base for more than 1,000 international pirates, according to maritime historians cited by National Geographic. Legendary names like William Kidd, Thomas Tew, Henry Every, and Edward England all anchored their ships in Antongil Bay, perfectly positioned along one of the busiest trade routes of the Indian Ocean, where merchant ships from India, Arabia, and Europe passed through. This wasn't just a hideout after raids, it was a real underground economy. Pirates divided gold, silver, silk, and spices right there on the white sandy beaches. Imagine, in just one season, the loot flowing into Île Sainte-Marie was worth millions of British pounds, at the time equivalent to billions of dollars today, outweighing the treasuries of entire European kingdoms. Today, the pirate cemetery still stands on the island with about 30 ancient stone tombs. Some even bear carvings of the Jolly Roger, undeniable proof that this was once the Wall Street of pirates. Local divers still report finding Spanish and Dutch coins and old muskets in shipwrecks off Sainte-Marie. The question is, would you dare dive in and search for a few coins buried beneath the ocean sand? And so as the curtain of invisible laws closes, Madagascar emerges as both breathtakingly beautiful and frighteningly strict. Which of these 15 facts shocked you the most? Comment the number below and tell us why. Love exploring these cultural frontiers. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss more journeys where things that sound like legend turn out to be true.